I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about I was a people pleaser with my ex.
Ooh.
So, we're going to be talking about what is a people pleaser?
That is a great question.
Are those the people that you meet in Vegas for a couple $100?
I mean, some would say that.
Those are different types of people pleasers.
True. A people pleaser basically is someone who avoids conflict, who does want to try to win the approval of others. Mm-hmm. They normally rate very high on agreeableness as far as their personality, and they tend to suppress a lot of their own needs. They tend to be self-sacrificing in order to make other people more comfortable. Mm-hmm. They tend to overpromise. They tend to, say yes a lot and have a hard time saying no. They tend to agree with other people's opinions just because it avoids that friction and avoids that confrontation. Mm-hmm. So that is some of the behaviors that you might see in a people pleaser, someone who's people pleasing.
Those are not at all like the people pleasers in Vegas, are they?
No, a little different, just a little.
That's a different video altogether. But it's really important that you understand this stuff because, a lot of times people are like this because of how they grew up and the love that they got or didn't get in their relationships. And so they formed these strategies to avoid certain things, which we're going to get into in a minute, mm-hmm. and to feel safe. Okay? It's like a survival mechanism. The interesting thing about being a people pleaser is we think it's going to make the person attracted to us, but it actually really turns people off. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this before maybe years ago, like Smithers from The Simpsons. He was always trying to please Mr. Burns. Mm-hmm. And the more he tried to please him, the less respect Mr. Burns had for him. Mm-hmm. And the more he was like insulting of him or degrading him or whatever. And so that's the biggest example I've ever seen as a character, as a people pleaser, is Smithers, mm-hmm. always desperately trying to get attention because you want it so bad, you just look pathetic to that other person, mm-hmm. right? Like a person like Mr. Burns who's going to exploit and use people, he's just going to see that as weakness to take advantage of. Ideally, that's not somebody you're in a relationship with.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right? But people that are exploitive can see it that way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. So people pleasing, it can get to a territory where it is dangerous. You're self-sacrificing to a point where it really does hurt you and mm-hmm. brings you down even lower. It can really hit your self-esteem too. People pleasing can also be prioritizing the opinions, the needs, the wants of other people above your own. And when you start to see other people in this way and start to see other people as above you or more important than you, then what you're really doing is neglecting yourself. Yep. You really are abandoning yourself, which really is the irony in this entire situation. Yep. You're people pleasing in order for people to not leave you.
And ironically, they wind up leaving you because they're unattracted to your behavior.
You end up leaving yourself.
Yeah.
You're not connected with...
Everybody's leaving you.
You're just very alone,
Even the people pleasers in Vegas are leaving you.
Well, for enough money, they'll come back.
Yeah, they'll come back.
But the point here is, we have a responsibility to ourselves to be authentic, to advocate for our own needs, because nobody is going to do it for us. What we see often is people with more of an anxious attachment style having a lot more of these people-pleasing tendencies.
Yep.
And so if in their early childhood like Craig was saying, they didn't have those needs met and they were really deprived of some of that nurture, love, and attention, then they're starving for it more in adulthood, in their other relationships and in life.
Yep.
So that's where some of this people-pleasing tendencies can come up. Now, I will say that naturally as human beings, we all have some aspect of people-pleasingness in us because that's how we're socialized. You know, when we're rewarded by praise from other people, we learn, okay, if we do good things, then other people smile, other people are happy with us. And naturally, the human body, when we see other people, we mirror other people unconsciously all the time. But there's different levels and different degrees to everything. And in this video, we're talking more about the degree to where you abandon yourself, where you're not able to stand up for yourself and really ask for what you need or want.
Yep. And in some way, they're really just trying to get that person to stay. Mm-hmm. But ironically, it makes people turned off because they don't feel like an equal anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, they kind of feel like they're above you and you're below them, you're beneath them. And in a way, you're kind of putting yourself there, right? When you're just constantly putting the other person's needs ahead of yours, you're almost saying, I don't have needs, I just want to make you happy. But then it's not an equal attraction or connection anymore, and they feel like they could take you for granted or take advantage of you. And they often do.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not even intentional. Sometimes it slowly just becomes the dynamic of the relationship where you have one person with more power and one person with less because they're giving up their power. Mm-hmm. And the day that that person decides, you know what, I'm going to set some boundaries here, then the person who has had the power, quote unquote, this entire time is in shock, is thinking, okay, why are you saying no? I'm so used to you saying yes. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can be a situation where it's not even, this abuse of power, but it just slowly and gradually becomes the dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's important to constantly connect with yourself and say, is this relationship what I want? Am I doing what I want? Am I, getting my needs met from this relationship? Mm-hmm. So think about those things as you are relating with others and as you are in relationships. The reason why we're talking about people pleasing today is because it does end up leading to a lot of breakups and it does end up leading to a lot of resentment. For the people pleaser, it's a lot of effort. It can be really exhausting.
That's true.
And it can be really draining. Mm-hmm. And it can be really draining, especially when you're not feeling like you're getting much in return.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in this situation end up having this sense of burnout. Sometimes it leads to complacency, where they feel like they have no more energy left because they're constantly trying to please their partner and say yes and overpromise and do all of these things that they may not have the resources, time, or energy for.
And they're also, really going to get resentful because they're doing it to not just make that person stay, but also try and meet their needs and hoping by doing these things that they're going to meet the needs. And they don't because they're seeing you as like somebody who just lets them walk on you or walk all over. And so they don't feel like they have to meet your needs because they don't think that you're a real threat to leave them.
Right.
Yeah.
And a feeling that I get on a lot of these calls is this feeling of righteous indignation, where they have poured into their partner and they're saying, I've done so much for this person and this is what happened. And I can almost promise you if we were to ask that other person, they would say, well, I never asked them to.
Especially if they were avoidant.
Especially if they're avoidant.
I can hear it coming out of their mouth now.
Right.
Yeah, that's accurate.
In fact, I told them not to. And so, in these situations, it can lead to breakup, resentment, anger, even if it is a righteous anger, even if it is I did all these things out of this good intention and it didn't end the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah. So there's a subtle manipulation to it, that you're trying to manipulate them to give you what you want, maybe as opposed to asking for it or saying what you need.
Right.
But because you grew up in a home where that was dangerous or scary, now you've resorted to sly strategies and tactics that probably don't give you what you want because they don't even catch it.
Right.
The avoidance like, huh? But you never said that.
And what usually follows for the people pleaser is passive aggressiveness. Now, it will be small little comments here and there of, I always do that for you, and you can't even do it once. Now, little comments here and there that end up building tension in the relationship that can lead it to crumble. So be mindful and be aware. I don't know how many times I've said that in this video. Connecting with yourself is really, really, really important. And also for your partner, when you are people pleasing constantly, it can confuse them as far as what you want, who you really are, and whether you actually like them. Because if you say yes to everything, how do you know when you actually mean it versus when you don't? And so even for the other party, there can be this sense of guilt and the sense of, are they really meaning what they're saying?
Yeah. You know, it's tough because you're probably in such a desperate state right now that the only thing you're really focusing on is, how do I get my ex back using this, right? Everybody's going back to that. Well, look at it this way. If you don't respect yourself, you're not going to create an attraction, like I said, where the dynamic feels equal. So if that's the only thing that gets you to that place, then understand you can't be a people pleaser because they won't feel attraction to somebody like that. Who was attracted to Smithers? I don't think anybody in the history of anybody's, right? So find it within yourself to say, I have to learn to be more attractive and aware of my own needs and being able to say no or set limits and boundaries with people, because it's the more attractive thing to do if you struggle with the self-esteem aspect of it.
And it's so difficult because imagine the reasons why you developed this behavior is because you thought your authentic self wasn't lovable. So really what we're saying is through healing those core wounds, you naturally will be more attractive because you are connecting with yourself, and you know, instead of putting on a facade of what you think people want to see.
Absolutely. So think about it. How were you acting as a people pleaser in your relationship? And maybe how did you do those things since your breakup? What can you do differently to not be a people pleaser, to re-attract somebody and keep it a mutual attraction and not where somebody feels like there's a huge power imbalance in the dynamic?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And you really want to be able to build that sense of self. Basically who you are, what you want your life to look like, your goals, your dreams. So think about those things for yourself. You know, are you changing the path of your life that you want just because of your partner, just because of someone else? You know, consider all of these things. And really, a person wants to be in a relationship with another human being who has their own sets of ideas and beliefs and opinions. You know, sure, there's attraction in similarities, but there's also attraction in differences. You know, rarely are we attracted to an exact identical twin of ourselves. Many people would find that very irritating if we had it in reality. So nobody wants to date this robot that spits back out.
That's right.
Exactly what you want it to say.
Yeah, that's not attractive. Okay, so hopefully this has been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to talk.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.